Yes, in the last video, we had seen about the digestion, how the digestion occurs in the human body. Yes, how the food that we take in is sent to each and every part of the alimentary canal, and then the other glands, which are also a part of the digestion system. Yes, in the class, in the online class, I showed you how is that process goes on, how the food is being passed to each and every part of our body. Okay. Now in this activity 2.3, you have to take two test tubes. One you label it A, another you label it as B. In one of the test tube, you'll keep the boiled rice. Yes, you'll cook the rice and keep that cooked rice in that test tube. And in the other test tube, you'll chew that rice, yes, with your mouth, and then keep that chewed boiled rice into that test tube. After this process, when you will put the 2-3 drops of iodine solution in both the test tubes, what you'll observe is that the boiled rice that you kept in test tube A will turn to blue black, whereas the boiled rice that you have chewed in your mouth and kept in the test tube will not turn to blue black because the test tube B, the rice in the test tube B is being converted to sugar, because when the boiled rice comes in contact with the saliva, when we chew it in our mouth and it comes in contact with the saliva, it is converted into sugar. So when you put iodine solution, it has not been, the color does not change to blue black, whereas in test tube A, the boiled rice is in the form of starch, and that is why when you put the iodine solution, it will turn to blue black. So now we'll discuss what is the function of tongue. Yes, the tongue is a fleshy muscular organ attached at the back to the floor of the buccal cavity. Yes, we saw in the picture. In this picture, we saw what is buccal cavity. Yes, so this is the buccal cavity. At the end of this buccal cavity, our tongue is attached, is been fixed at that part. So the tongue is a fleshy muscular organ attached at the back to the floor of the buccal cavity. It is free at the front. Yes, we know that our tongue is free at the front side. That is why we can move it in all directions. Now, what is the function of tongue? So the first function is talking. We can talk because our tongue is moving. We can talk properly. Yes, so we use our tongue for talking. Other than that, what is the function of tongue? Besides it, that it mixes saliva with the food. So the saliva, the white color liquid that is being secreted in our mouth, that is mixed with the food that when we eat is being mixed with the help of tongue. During chewing, it mixes the saliva with the food during chewing and also helps in swallowing the food. Yes, so the function of tongue is to talk, to mix saliva with the food, and to help in swallowing the food. Now, one more function is it also tastes food. We also taste food with our tongue. So, we can taste the food with our tongue. Why? Because it has taste buds. Our tongue has taste buds which can detect the different taste of the food that we put in our mouth. Now, different positions, regions of the tongue for different tastes. There are different regions for different taste. So, one experiment you can do at your home, you can prepare a sugar solution, common salt solution, lemon juice, and juice of bitter gourd or neem leaf. And then you have to put each of these 2-3 drops at some other different places on your tongue, right? And then you can see which place at where the taste buds are there. Yes, when you put a bitter thing, if you have put at the on the taste buds on your tongue, then it will taste bitter. If you have put salty thing, it will taste salty. Okay, so this experiment everybody should do at your home. Clear? So I told you to do that experiment. In that experiment, after that you have to label which part. It is shown in figure 2.6, different regions where taste buds are present. So you have to mark that at which place you kept the food item, that is salty, sweet, and which which was the places where you found the taste buds. Okay, so you can, after doing this activity, you can label this figure 2.6. Now the next, so now we discussed about the tongue and the buccal cavity, which is the first part of the, or the first compartment of the alimentary canal. Now the second is food pipe or the esophagus. So what happens after the food is being chewed in the mouth, the swallowed food passes into the food pipe or the esophagus. Yes, the food pipe runs along the neck. So starting from the neck, it goes to the stomach. See the food, here they have shown the food is being passed in the food pipe. Yes, this canal. And then it reaches to the stomach. Then our food reaches to the stomach. So in this figure, they have shown the movement of food in the alimentary canal. They have shown the movement of food in the alimentary canal. Food, this is a food from the food pipe. It is passing down and it's reaching to the stomach. Food is pushed down by the movement of the wall of the food pipe. So wall of the food pipe pushes the food and it passes down. Actually, this movement takes place throughout the alimentary canal and pushes the food downwards. So this action keeps on continuing in the whole alimentary canal and the food reaches to the stomach. At times, the food is not accepted by our stomach and is vomited out. So if the food is not proper, if it is decaying food or if it is rotten food, such type of food is not accepted by our body, and such food we vomit it out. So this is how it passes through the esophagus or the food pipe because of the movement of the food. Because of the movement of the inside the walls of the alimentary canal, the food is pushed downwards and reaches to the stomach. Now we'll see what happens after it reaches to the stomach. The next compartment of the alimentary canal is the stomach. The stomach is a thick walled bag. So it looks like a bag. You can see in this picture also that it looks like a bag. The stomach, it looks like a bag. Its shape is like a flattened U. It looks like a U shape, and it is the widest part of the alimentary canal. So there are so many parts, so many compartments, right? Different compartments are buccal cavity, esophagus, small intestine, large intestines, rectum, anus. Out of these, all the compartments of the alimentary canal, stomach is the widest part of the alimentary canal. It receives food from the food pipe, as we saw in the earlier topic, that from the food pipe, the food that is being swallowed by our mouth reaches the food pipe and then it reaches the stomach. So it receives food from the food pipe at one end and opens into the small intestine at the other end. Okay, so just I'll show you in the diagram. Yes, this is the opening from where the food enters from the food pipe into the stomach, and this is the place where it opens into the small intestine. So here, after this, there will be small intestine. After the food is being digested by the stomach, it is then passed from here to the small intestine. Now, the inner lining of the stomach. The inner lining of the stomach secretes what all things? Mucus, hydrochloric acid, and digestive juices. So the walls of the stomach secrete mucus, hydrochloric acid, and digestive juices. Now, what is the function of mucus? The mucus protects the lining of the stomach. So the mucus helps to protect, it does not allow, it protects the lining of the stomach. It means that it helps it looks that the wall of the stomach or the lining of the stomach is not damaged, right? Then the acid, the hydrochloric acid that is produced, what does it do? It kills many bacteria that enter. So when we eat the food, there are some bacteria present on it. So it kills those bacteria which are present in the food and makes the medium in the stomach acidic. So the inside the stomach, the liquid that is that it pours into the stomach or that it secretes into the stomach, it makes that liquid acidic. The digestive juices break down. What is the function of digestive juices? It breaks down the protein that is present in the food into simpler substances. Up till now, we discussed about the three compartments of the alimentary canal, that is the food pipe, that the esophagus, the buccal cavity, and the stomach. Now, the next is the small intestine. Yes, the next one is the small intestine. The small intestine is highly coiled and is about 7.5 meters long. So this is an important point here, that the small intestine is 7.5 meters long. It receives secretions from the liver and the pancreas. So in this image, I'll show you. This is the liver and this is the leaf-shaped pancreas. From these two glands, it receives some digestive juices. Where it receives the small intestine. The small intestine receives the juices from liver and pancreas. Besides, its wall also secretes juices. So the small intestine receives juices from these two glands, and also it itself, its wall also, the small intestine's walls also secrete juices. The liver is a reddish brown gland situated in the upper part of the abdomen on the right. So you can see that the liver is situated at the upper part of our abdomen. This is our abdomen and it is located in the upper part and to the right hand side, to the right side of the abdomen. It is the largest gland in the body. So this is also one more important line that you have to remember, that liver is the largest gland in our body. What does it do? It secretes bile juice. Okay, one type of digestive juice which helps to digest the food. It secretes bile juice that is stored in a sac. It is stored in a sac called the gallbladder. So where is it? This is the gallbladder, where this bile juice secreted by the liver is being stored. Okay. The bile plays an important role in the digestion of fat. So the bile juice that is secreted by the liver is helpful in breaking down the fat, that is present in the food into simpler forms. Then the next gland is pancreas. The pancreas is a large cream colored gland located just below the stomach. So you can see in this figure that this leaf shaped gland, that is the pancreas, it is located just below your stomach. Now what is the function of pancreas? It secretes pancreatic juice. That is one type of digestive juice which acts on carbohydrates and proteins. As bile juice was, what was the function of bile juice? To break down the fat into simple forms which can be absorbed by the body. Similarly, the function of pancreatic juice is to break down carbohydrates and proteins into simpler forms which can be absorbed by our body. The partly digested food now reaches. So up till now the food has not been fully digested. It has only been partly digested. That partly digested food reaches to the lower part of the small intestine where the intestinal juice, yes, the juices that are secreted by the wall of the small intestine, that juices when combined with the partly digested food, the digestion of the food is completed. All the components of the food are being completely digested at this point. So what are being they converted to? Yes, the carbohydrates get broken down into simple sugars such as glucose, fats into fatty acids and glycerol, and proteins into amino acids. Okay, so this you have to remember that the carbohydrates is broken down into simple sugar such as glucose, fats into fatty acids and glycerol, and proteins into amino acids. Yes, the food that reaches to the lower part of the small intestine where the intestinal juice is being secreted. Yes, the intestinal juice helps to complete the digestion of all components of food. And after the digestion process is completed, what happens? The carbohydrates in the food is broken down into simple sugars such as glucose. The fat that is present in the food is being broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. And the proteins present in the food is being converted to amino acids. Okay, so we have completed which all organs or which all parts of the alimentary canal: the buccal cavity, the salivary gland, the esophagus, the liver, the gallbladder, the stomach, the pancreas. And now we have completed only half part of the small intestine. The next part of the small intestine, what is done there is absorption in the small intestine. The absorption of these all parts of the food to which it is converted. So the digested food can now pass into the blood vessels. So now the digested food, which is in the form of glucose, fatty acids, glycerol, and amino acids, is ready to be absorbed into the blood vessels. So what happens? The digested food can now pass into the blood vessels in the wall of the intestine, and this process is called absorption. So the process of passing the digested food into the blood vessels by the wall of the small intestine is called absorption. Now, the inner walls of the small intestine have thousands of finger-like outgrowths. In the video that I had shown you in the class, you had seen that there were so many finger-like growths. Yes, finger-like structures. They were called as villi, and a single such finger-like structure is called as villus. Right? In plural, we call it as when there are so many finger-like structures, then we call them as villi, and when there is only one finger like outgrowth, then we call it as villus. Now, what is the role of villi in the intestine? The villi increase the surface area for absorption of the digested food. It provides area, it provides space for the absorption. By it starts moving when the food reaches there and in the lower part of the small intestine, and helps for the absorption, provides space for the food to be absorbed by the blood vessels. Each villus has a network of thin and small blood vessels close to its surface. So each and every villi has a small blood vessels running inside on the surface. So the surface of the villi the absorbs the substances and absorbs the digested food materials, and the absorbed substance are transported via the blood vessels to different organs of the body where they are used to build complex substances such as, so what is the villi doing? The surface of the villi absorbs what? Digested food materials. As on the surface there are thin blood vessels. So these blood vessels absorb the digested food material, and the absorbed food material is then transported via the blood vessels to different organs of the body, where they are used to build complex substances. Which type of substances? Complex substances such as proteins required by the body. Yes, this is called assimilation. So what is assimilation? The process of passing the food absorbed by the blood vessels to the organs which where protein is required. This is called as assimilation. So what happens in the cells? Glucose breaks down with the help of oxygen into carbon dioxide and water. So the carbohydrates, as we saw here, that intestinal juice converts carbohydrates into glucose. So the glucose that reach to the organ, what happens to the glucose there? It is then broken down into what? Carbon dioxide and water. And also energy is released. And also energy is released. The food that remains undigested and unabsorbed, the food that cannot be digested by the small intestine, what happens? It then enters into the large intestine. Yes, the undigested and unabsorbed food enters into the large intestine. So the food that was remaining is being, what happens? The food that remains is being sent to the large intestine. Now what does the large intestine do? The large intestine is wider and shorter than the small intestine. So do you remember what was the length of the small intestine? It was 7.5 meters. The length of the small intestine is 7.5 meters. Now how much is the length of a large intestine? It is wide. It is wide. It is wider than small intestine, but it is shorter than small intestine. Okay, so it is about 1.5 meters. Our small intestine is 7.5 meters, and our large intestine is 1.5 meters in length. Okay, so see, I'll show you how. See, the width of the small intestine is different, and the width of the large intestine is different. So large intestine is more wider than the small intestine. Okay, now its function. What is the function of large intestine? To absorb water and salt from the undigested food. So what does the large intestine do? It absorbs the water and the salt that is present in the undigested food. And then the remaining waste passes into the rectum and remains there as semi-solid feces. Okay, there it remains as semi-solid. Yes, it is not solid also, it is not liquid also. In semi-solid form it remains there. This fecal matter is removed, and this fecal matter is then removed through our anus from time to time. Yes, and the process of throwing out this fecal matter through anus from our body is called egestion. Okay, so here we learned absorption. Yes, what is absorption? Means absorbing is the process of passing the digested food into the blood vessels by the wall of the intestine through the villi. Yes, villi are finger-like outgrowths. Then we learned what is assimilation, right? What is assimilation? Assimilation is passing the food For example, the glucose, fatty acids, glycerol, proteins, passing those food to each and every organ inside our body so that the body can use it. That is called as assimilation. Okay. So here we complete the process of digestion that occurs in the human body, right? So in the human body, what happens? Our food our food starts to enter our body through the buccal cavity that is inside our mouth. Then the tongue, it helps to break down, and the tongue and the teeth helps to break down our food. The tongue helps to mix it with the saliva that is secreted by the salivary glands, and that food, when we swallow it down, it passes through the esophagus, because the alimentary canal walls, the wall of the esophagus, push the food. By the movement of the esophagus, wall of the esophagus, the food is being pushed down and sent to the stomach. And then from the stomach, in the stomach, what happens? The three types of liquid, that is the hydrochloric acid, digestive juices are being secreted, and that helps in the digestion of the food in the stomach. And that food is the digested food is then sent through this opening of the stomach that is connected to the small intestine, and passes to the small intestine, right? And when it reaches the small intestine, what happens? The pancreatic juice that is secreted by the pancreas, and also the intestinal juice. Yes, these all juice mix with the food item and convert it into simpler forms. And then after the food is being fully digested in the small intestine and converted into simple forms, it is then absorbed by the walls of the small intestine, and then absorbed by the blood vessels that are present in the small intestine, and sent to each and every part of the body, right? And the undigested food is then sent to the large intestine. And what is the function of large intestine? It absorbs the salt and water that is present in the food, and then it passes it to the rectum, where it is in the semi-solid form, and then we throw it out from our body through the anus. Okay, through the anus. Then we throw it out from our body in the form of anus, and that is called as egestion. That is called as egestion.